Hey everybody, welcome back for another video. So it is a little later in the month than I typically put out these like wrap up type videos, but I was on vacation and we were out of the country, so I'm just taking my time and being kind of leisurely with these this month. So usually I do one video that's a little bit longer and I combo what I read in the previous month, kind of recap that, and then go over my plans for the current month. Well, I'm going to try something different this month. I'm going to split those up. I'm going to do a wrap-up video and then a TBR video, kind of more of a standard booktuber format there. And I hadn't really received any complaints about the way I was doing it, but I figured I'd try it this way and just kind of see what you guys like better in hopes that it might result in shorter videos. But I am long-winded, so there's no guarantee there. It might just make me feel like I have more room to talk. So we'll see. You guys give me feedback. Let me know what you think. But this particular video is going to be me telling you about everything I read in the month of July. So I read a lot of books in July, like more than I thought I did. When I went back and recapped and kind of made my notes, I was like, dang girl, like, did you do anything but read in July? And apparently not. So I mentioned that we went on a vacation, and so I did work a lot on the front end of the month, kind of to get ahead at work. And when I'm at work, I do have the luxury of listening to audiobooks with my headphones, and so extra work means extra book time. So I guess it does make sense in the end. Plus vacation, I actually read quite a bit. So I'm going to recap July and hopefully inspire you guys, because almost everything I read in July was amazing and I just can't wait to tell you guys all about it. So I don't have my clipboard with me, but I have this super cute bookmark that I've been using, and it looks kind of like an old-fashioned library card, and it lets you track what you've been reading and the dates and then give it a star rating over here. So I'm going to work off of this. So the very first thing I read in July was actually a little bit of a carryover from the month of June, and that is Excalibur, which is book 3 of the Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. Guys, this is maybe one of my favorite books I read all year, and it's definitely one of my favorite trilogies I've ever read. The audiobook experience is probably one of my favorite audiobook experiences I've ever had. I would just sit here and gush and gush and gush and gush about this to you, but I'm holding myself accountable. Help me here. I'm going to do a series review on this trilogy because I thought it was an absolute masterpiece. I am not exaggerating when I say I've thought about that series every day since I finished it. And that's special because there are plenty of books I liked quite a bit that I don't think about much after I read them. Like after I put it down, I may think about them for a day or two. And then if someone has a conversation with me about them, I'll be like, oh yeah, that book was great. And I'll talk about it again. But they leave your brain pretty quickly. They don't take up space. They don't, they're not living rent-free in your head. This series will live rent-free in my head for the rest of my life, I bet. I loved it. It's a favorite. Please read Warlord Chronicles. So that already set the expectations pretty high for the month of July. I mean, when you read one of your favorite books ever at the very beginning of the month, like what else could happen? But I actually did have a super good reading month outside of that. So I started Codex Alera, which I've been looking forward to for a very long time. I almost started it early, like 8 months ago, but I had agreed to a read along, so I decided to wait and do it with friends. And I read the first 2 books. The first one is called The Furies of Calderon, and the second one is called Academ's Fury. And if I'm being honest, I was very lukewarm on the first 2 books. Like, they were fine. There was nothing I hated about them, and nothing I could even pinpoint that I really disliked, but there also wasn't really that much that I loved about it, not much that was super memorable or felt very unique. The characters were just kind of okay, but again, not nearly enough bad there for me to say I'm not going to continue. So I read the first 2. We're planning on 2 a month, and I'll talk a little more about book 3 in the next video I'm doing probably, but so far, I'm kind of in the middle on it. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But I have been told repeatedly and consistently by everyone who's read it that the series starts out kind of weak, but just gets better. And so far, that's been my experience. The first 2 books were kind of weak, so I'm not thrilled about continuing it, but I have faith in Jim Butcher, and also, like I said, I've been so consistently warned that the first couple of books are kind of like and then it gets much, much better. So far that seems accurate for my experience. Kind of meh, but I have faith and I will continue. Next up was Jade War. This is book 2 of the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. And again, I really enjoyed this book. I think this series is really fun. It reads quick and it feels unique because it is fantasy, but it definitely has a family drama, crime, mobster vibe to it. And it's all set in like an Asian setting. So you combine the fact that it's, more modern times, has that Asian setting, and then also has some like Godfather vibes. It's not necessarily like the most unique thing I've ever read, period, but for being a fantasy story, it's unique. I really, really like some of the characters. It has some like really cool moments that felt like, yes, I did not see that coming, but that was awesome. So I'm really enjoying my time with that trilogy, and I'm looking forward to wrapping it up next month. Probably the biggest surprise for me in the month of July was this guy right here, The Legend of Blackjack by A.R. Witham. This is a self-published book that was nowhere on my radar, but I watched a review for it that caught my attention, and then the author reached out to me and sent me a review copy, and I absolutely loved it. This is a standalone fantasy book, which already gives it points because sometimes those are hard to come by, but I'm always looking for them. It was an easy read, it was a quick read, but more than anything, it was fun and it was very, very, very good. So if you are looking for something that is a one-off story that has rich world building and amazing characters and it's just a really fun adventure story, please check out The Legend of Blackjack. I don't know what date it is that you're watching this, but right now, today, the day that I'm recording this, The Legend of Blackjack is free on Kindle. So you have no reason not to at least add it to your library and throw it in on your TBR, on your reading plans when it works in for you. But this is a high recommendation for me. I really like this book and I think most people will as well. Fire and Blood was a little bit of a crossover. I read about 40% of it in June and the rest of it in July. But I was so surprised by this book. I am a huge George R.R. Martin fan. Westeros is Where My Heart Lives, A Song of Ice and Fire is probably my favorite fantasy series of all time. I loved Game of Thrones, that's my jam, okay? But for some reason, I had never read Fire and Blood. I was, I guess, worried that it was going to be a little dry and it wouldn't be that entertaining. But those are silly, silly worries because it was amazing. I loved every page of it, and it has got me so, so excited about the House of the Dragon, the new show that's coming out. And speaking of House of the Dragon, I'm getting very excited for that because I'm going to be doing a post-show discussion videos with Scott, the Bald Booktuber, and Mike at Mike's Book Reviews on Mike's channel. So we're going to be doing breakdowns and just discussions about each episode over on Mike's channel, and I'm really looking forward to it anyway. But reading this was a really smart choice. I wouldn't say that it's required reading. If you've never read it, you can still watch the show and enjoy it. But I personally am really glad that I read Fire and Blood before starting the show because it just really renewed my excitement for that Targaryen history. So keep an eye out for those discussion videos that we're going to be doing on Mike's channel because those are always really fun. And I hope you enjoy the show and I hope you watch our wrap-up videos as well. All year long, I have been participating in a Dark Tower read-along, and there are 7 books, and we're doing one a month, so month 7 equaled book 7, and we wrapped up the Dark Tower series with the book titled The Dark Tower. I'm a little mixed on this book, and I feel like I still haven't had a chance to really have a therapy session with the other friends that I was reading this with and talk it out. Overall, I loved the series. And I think I really liked the book too, but there were just some things that just kind of, I don't know, I'm still processing. So I'm mixed on The Dark Tower, but I'm so, so glad I read it. I'm glad that I have had an experience with a true quartet, and I mean, I don't even know what to say because I still feel like I need to get together with all those guys that we read it together and just hash it out, because I feel like I'm not even going to be able to settle on my true opinions on the book until I verbally process it. Does that make sense? But all that being said, I loved the series and I do think I liked the book. I'm just left kind of I can't believe that all just happened. Does a book ever leave you like that? That's how I feel. I'm I can't believe, I'm in shock still. The ending was about what I expected, but everything leading up to it just kind of I don't know, Stephen King, like that guy's crazy, you know what I mean? That guy is nuts, but he's bold, and he pulled off some bold stuff in this book. So whether you love the ending or you dislike it, I mean, the journey is absolutely worth it. So I love The Dark Tower, and thank you, Scott, for organizing that. We did that on Mike's Discord server, but Scott, the Bald Booktuber, he kind of like coordinated that and ran that, and it was a really enjoyable read along, and I love the series. So very, very happy that I made that journey. I also read Us Against You, and this is book 2 of a trilogy that Frederick Backman is writing. Book 1 is Beartown, book 2 is Us Against You, and book 3 is called The Winners, and it's already published, but it's being released in English here shortly, I believe. I think in September maybe. I'll double check that. I read Us Against You to kind of get ready for The Winners, and I'll be honest, when I read Beartown, first of all, I loved Beartown. Like, you hear the premise, and it's about a town who's obsessed with hockey. And like, I'm just not a hockey person. I don't think I live in the right part of the United States to be like super interested in hockey. So if you had just told me the premise of it, I probably would have passed. But luckily I picked it up kind of blind, and I loved Beartown. Like, don't hear hockey and think it's not for you, because it's really a book about people. It's a book about community. It's a book about human nature. Like, it's amazing. I highly recommend Beartown. But I wasn't necessarily super excited to get to the sequel, because I thought, like, what kind of sequel is this even going to be? It didn't feel like a book that needed a sequel. And sometimes when something is successful, you get the sense that an author might just write a sequel to kind of like keep that gravy train going. And I don't know Frederick Backman. I don't know if he's that kind of guy, but I was worried. I'm like, I don't feel like that's a book that needs a sequel. Well, turns out Us Against You is a book that needed to be written. It's a story I needed to hear. It was amazing. I might even say I like Us Against You more than Beartown. So it has me very excited and very hopeful for The Winners, because now I'm at the point where I just trust Frederick Backman. Anything he writes, I'm going to read it. I'm not totally caught up on all of his backlog. I still have probably 4 or 5 of his novels that I need to read. But so far, I mean, it's everything he has written that I've read has been an absolute hit. So I definitely recommend Beartown if you haven't read it. But if you have read Beartown and you're just like me, where you're not sure if you even need more of that story, you do. Like, it's so good. I loved Us Against You. I definitely recommend it. Real quick, I just want to talk about a few things that I read on Kindle, so I don't have them, you know, right in front of me to show you. But I read The Warlord of Mars, which is book 3 of the John Carter books. And as usual, I thought it was fun, and I just absolutely loved that. I'm just always blown away that these books are like 250 years old. Like, in the 1800s, Edgar Rice Burroughs was writing these books about things that I don't even know how you could be that creative back then. I mean, I guess creativity is timeless, and it's technically not the oldest sci-fi book ever written. But when we think of sci-fi and we think of, you know, a hero going to a planet and fighting Martians and stuff like that, this is the original. And I'm just continually impressed by that, and just, I think it's adorable and I love it. So whenever I don't know what to read, or I want something that's pretty short, I know it's going to be action-packed, and I know it's going to make me smile, I always am drawn towards these John Carter books. So I'm really happy I started those. I also read The Law by Jim Butcher. This is a Dresden novella. And I just got to tell you, I've been missing Harry Dresden. I've been missing that world. I've been missing that type of writing and those fun little stories. So, you know, it didn't blow me away. I'm glad I read it. I think it was under 200 pages, so I just sat down for a couple hours and I read that while I was on vacation, and it was perfect little palate cleanser, and it's just nice to spend some time with Harry Dresden. I also read Savage Son by Jack Carr. This is book 3 of the Terminal List, and I think it wasn't my favorite. I'm still going to go with the Terminal List being the best, book 1, but I did like it more than book 2, which is saying something because I liked book 2, but this one was cool, you guys. Like, I don't want to give anything away, but like, he touches on some pretty dark stuff here, like stuff that really actually happens in the world, but we kind of like to pretend that it doesn't. Jack Carr isn't afraid to go there, and this book was dark and it was brutal, but it had a very cool story, and I read it super quick because those books, you just blaze through them and you can't put them down. I'm having a great time with it, and I can't wait to keep going and read the rest of them. And the last thing I read in July, I actually finished it on August 1st, but we're gonna count it for July, is I did a reread of A Game of Thrones. And guess what? It's still my favorite book. Like, I haven't done a list where I definitively pick my favorite book ever, but I don't think there's any way I could make that list and talk myself out of ranking A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin as my #1 favorite book ever. Like, this book, I think this is the 5th time I've read it, and I like it more every time I read it. I think it gets better. I think I get more out of it, and just the layers and layers of brilliance in this book, it just becomes more obvious every time you read it. I showed this copy because I don't treat all my books this way, but this book in here, you guys, every page almost, ooh, watch out. Every page nearly has highlights and annotations and things I've written and circled and sticky notes. I just can't stop wringing new information out of this book. So I like to read out of this one because it just makes me happy. But I, for the first time, actually read some from this copy as well. And if you don't have these, you can pick them up. They're still pretty easy to find. It's just a nice illustrated hardcover, and it's a very nice binding. It has great illustrations in it. So I highly recommend this edition if you want something a little fancier, but you're not quite able to splurge on like the folio edition or something like that. This illustrated edition it's easy to get on Amazon and stuff like that, and it is still really nice. So that's everything I read. I think it's, if you count the novellas and some of my crossover stuff, I think it came out to 12 books, but it's probably closer to 10 since a lot of them I like started in June, finished in July, that kind of stuff. So either way, a lot of books read in July, and mostly all stuff that I was really into, really enjoyed. As far as book of the month goes, it has to be Excalibur by Bernard Cornwell. I did have to think about it for a second because I loved Fire and Blood. The Legend of Blackjack just totally captured my heart. And I mean, Us Against You was so good. Jade City was a banger. I read a lot of good books this month, but it has to be Excalibur by Bernard Cornwell. Like, I loved that series, and I think that book, that third book, was my favorite of the series. And guys, that's just going to be an all-time favorite for me. I don't see any other way. Overall, such a good reading month for me. I was able to wrap up a series that I've been working on all year, start something new that I have been looking forward to for a long time, and really, I mean, I got to reread my favorite book of all time. So July was amazing, and I'm very excited for August, so tune in for that video. So please drop in the comments below, let me know what you think about the books I read. Is there anything that's surprising to you? But also, I gotta know, what is your book of the month? Show me your list of what you read, because I'm constantly being inspired by you guys and your recommendations. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next time.